Now let's begin the conversation. In times of great trouble, the strength of a nation can only be demonstrated by how it shelters its people. In the face of the devastating floods in Mokwa, Niger State, which claimed 153 lives and displaced more than 3,000 persons, President Bola Tinubu has ordered the immediate activation of the National Emergency Response Center. This is just as relief supplies and temporary shelters are being deployed, with the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, coordinating rescue operations alongside state authorities. President Tinubu expressed sorrow over the tragedy and pledged that no affected Nigerian will be left behind. Okay, GKB, the president has directed the National Emergency Management Emergency Response to provide humanitarian needs. First of all, our heart goes out to the people who lost their lives and the persons displaced. But the directive by the president, your thoughts on this?
Well, that's to be expected. It is basically the response mechanism kicking into place. I'm just tired of the fact that another thing will happen next week. And we have to come back and do it all over again. Because normally when we have tragedies of this nature, the first thing we do is make the usual response. But in most other countries, they have a template for ensuring things like this don't happen. That's why, despite all the noise being made in Lagos about what the Commissioner for Environment was doing, it was basically to make sure things like this are averted over the course of time. I know Mokwa very well. It's about the border town between Niger and Kwara. That's what they call Jeba, the gateway to Yoruba land. And Mokwa, the gateway to the north. And most of them will be farmers, most of them will be traders. People who move from other parts of Niger State to trade. And then they stayed over. They've been there for hundreds of years. And I understand that the infrastructure that was lost ran into millions of naira.
Oh dear.
And most of them are built on floodplains.
We're still going to talk about that part. We'll talk about that part.
The major thing we do.
Now, Kaide, let's talk about the response. How will you assess the response so far? From the federal government and also the state government. How will you assess it?
Maybe not extraordinary. We're used to this pattern. We're used to this kind of condolences, and I think what GKB is hammering on, it's my worry. I'm very big on data.
Okay.
And so when we hear some international stations saying that about 700, that's what BBC is reporting, they said 700 feared, they didn't use the word fear, they said believed dead. Now, we are still struggling with 153 and 180. Which one is accurate? That actually always pains me when we have to be arguing over data. Lives matter. A single life matters.
Sure.
9/11, if you visit the World Trade Center, you will still see
the names of the casualties.
It matters a lot. So these are not just numbers. They are human beings. They are people with promising future that have been killed. Yes, it is called natural disaster. But beyond the natural disaster, people are smarter to see how the natural disaster can be averted with minimal consequences that we have. So where is my request, my recommendation? When do we have accurate data? How should it be a difficult thing? Because the idea of 700 by BBC is to say that about 500 cannot be accounted for. Now, if an incident has happened since Thursday, and you don't know the whereabouts of 500, or they are saying 300, and some are saying 3,000 displaced, some are saying 5,000 displaced, we shouldn't have discrepancies over this data. It counts.
Not that large,
Exactly. It counts. Every life matters. That baby that was born a day old should be captured in a digitalized data system. So we are big on this. Let us take this thing very serious. So that when we say, when NEMA is looking for people, they know they are looking for 500. They are looking for, so because if you don't have corpses, you don't have things to describe the 500, then somebody can say believed dead. Do you understand?
Exactly.
Because if you are inside water, I understand maybe it takes 48 hours for this body to be exhumed. So I am particular about what we do with this data, because this data will help us to plan.
All right.
It will also help our rescue operations.
Okay. Now, GKB, the images so far, you know, in Mokwa shows that many of the houses, just like what you said, were built on river channels. Where do you think the blame should go in terms of urban planning? I mean, and not addressing the core issues of flooding.
How many cities, towns?
Is it the people, the government?
Well, between you and I, how many cities are truly planned in Nigeria? How many neighborhoods can point to a plan that they can work with? Don't forget the Ogunpa floods in the 80s.
My parents used to tell me about that.
Even in Lagos, yeah, there are some canals that are built basically to serve as, to carry flood water.
Okay, yeah.
Over the plains. If you are moving from Ikeja towards Lagos, on the right, that was the flood plains for, what's the name of that street? Where Sheraton is.
Oh, baby.
No.
Maryland.
This Anthony, Bank Anthony Way.
Okay, Bank Anthony, okay.
When we were young, you could see the gully. I know fully well that this is supposed to take the water for the period the flood is on. And then when it goes down, the place is now being built up. You don't take my word for it. Coming in from 7-Up, just look on the right, and you can see what it's meant for. And if I'm sure if you know some buildings along Bank Anthony Way, realize the fact that at the back of these buildings on the right, the gullies are there basically to collect water.
So right now, what do we have
they have been built up. And so that to me is dangers that we can see very near us. So imagine somewhere, like I said, the Mokwa was basically a trading post that was built up by traders who saw no need to go back. And you know what happened? They built anywhere, including on floodplains, including on riverbed. They don't care. Because most of the time, what they have is basically homes for seasons when they come to sell things and move away. Okay. So the danger to me is all around us. I don't know whether to blame the federal government or agencies that have been saddled with that responsibility all over the country.
Okay.
And that to me, I believe it to the federal government, fine. But there are things that local governments should do, there are things state governments should do when it comes to making sure that floodplains are protected. Okay. Because their job basically is to collect water when there is flood, because it's natural. Rain will fall.
All right.
Things like this will happen. Okay. But you must be ready to make sure that man-made problems don't.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit of meteorology now. Okay. I don't want to mix it up. Meteorology. Now, is there like some sort of a mechanism to tell people that, hey, from so date, there would be heavy rains. If you're living in maybe low areas, go to a higher ground. Is there some sort of mechanism like that that can make people aware?
I won't sound too academic or too intellectual here. Okay. But this is an endemic problem. It's a cultural issue. To the extent that, maybe except JKB, how many of us check the weather forecast when we're leaving our house today? The best we could think of is, it's going to be raining. You know, make sure your wiper is working. And make sure that you don't leave your clothes outside. We pay little attention.
And we get Google notifications
almost every time. So this is the best time for us to learn this hard way. For example, after this show, an environmental expert is coming to also talk more, you know, on Beyond the Headlines, to talk more on what we should do. Not just because people are so fond of government, tell them to clear the road. Can't you also clear your gutters? Can't you?
Nah, do you understand what I'm saying? Drainage.
So, government even
some people during the when it's raining, that's when they bring out their, you know,
government even forced us to do monthly environmental. Some of us went to court, they don't have the power. This is civilian government. If civilian government will make us lazy, let us apply some bit of, military things so that we do the needful. We don't clear our gutters. We don't do the basic thing. We don't read the weather forecast. We don't even watch it when we show it on TV. We just feel it's just one design.
To some it's
you
boring.
understand? We just say it's just one design of this map and this map. Please, maybe the coming generation should not learn this bad habit from us. It's very, very important.
Sure.
And like you said, in my head, I'm thinking of a natural Nigerian. I have not built my house, so I can use all the lands I've been taking up in Lagos. Maybe this time to think beyond now. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of this president. He thinks 50, 70, 80 years ahead. Let us start building skyscrapers. If the lands are all exhausted, let's build skyscrapers. That's what they do in Egypt. Go and check most of these places. If we have housing deficit, what do? You go up. You understand? Let's go up.
Okay.
Instead of saying, oh, I must build, and you know the history of that place.
Okay. Now, because of our time, just to round off we understand that this thing is an act of God.
Yeah.
Okay. But
it's environmental.
Is there something that could have been done, to reduce the devastation that we saw over the weekend, to reduce the casualty figure? Is there something that could have been done or put in place?
The people should stay off floodplains. It's as simple as that.
Which is not very
That's
simple.
even the first one. Even in areas where they built up canals, our people will clog it with refuse.
Do they build more dams, for example?
Look, okay, I just don't want to sound like somebody reciting history lessons. They've built estates in Nigeria before, that in those areas, the areas that are designated for bungalows, areas designated for story buildings. There was a time at Yaba, Ebutemeta. You could start at Ebutemeta West. I will be looking at Ebutemeta East, because the buildings are the same.
Patterned.
There are places in Bodija, in Ibadan, that they will take you to court if your structure is beyond
a particular
or if you are below
the structural
as the case may be. In Chicago, which you and I know, they have very tall buildings because it is a flat land. So they need those buildings to shield them from the wind. That's what they call it, the windy city.
The windy city.
There's nothing like a one-size-fits-all to these problems. You must look at your environment and decide what pays you. That's why I keep warning about Lagos. Lagos, as you and I know, are under the sea level. And we keep taking up areas that were set aside, basically to make sure that there will be flood, but they can go this way. And in 2-3 hours, during Fashola time, he laid emphasis on canals being cleared before the rainy season. So that at any given time, the stories that we hear about children being carried away will minimize. And I think, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy in Lagos is also doing the best he can. Within the council, because that's what you need to do. You cannot wait until disaster strikes before now start telling stories.
Absolutely.
You have to foresee that our season is March to August. There will be rain. I know areas in Lagos that people will carry their clothes. I don't want to mention because it is a high-rise area around Lekki. They have to carry their clothes out 6 months of the year because they cannot stay at home because they build below the water level.
Okay.
So it's a problem of environment. We can contribute to either make it work or make it worse.
Okay. All right. Again, our heart goes out to, the people in Mokwa local government area of Niger State, the government. Our heart goes out to them at this hour. All right, let's move straight to